Hello, my name is Simon. I'm a cybersecurity engineer with specialization in cloud security and networking. I'm also an active cybersecurity practitioner. I do a lot of research when it comes to cybersecurity and networking topics. And today I want us to dive into networking. So today here with us today we'll be using Cisco packet tracer. And okay, with me here is our web page. Let me just expand it. As you can see on this web page, it's called Churchboy. It's a website. It's a web page created by Wix. It's created on Wix. It's something I created some times ago. I created it a while ago. But the specific topic I want us to look on is installing packet tracer on Kali Linux. So if you encounter any trouble installing packet tracer on your Kali Linux machine, I've written a guide and I'll ensure that I paste the link I'll paste the link so that you can be able to access it. But for Windows, the installation is quite direct, so it will be easier for you to install. So this is the packet tracer home page, or the page after you install it. It will request you to log into your either Cisco Skills for All or your Cisco account, so that you can be able to access the packet tracer application. So with me here is the application, and this is our first networking video. So I want us to look at the basics of networking. So it's networking. In this instance, networking is the ability to communicate, and unlike power, which is where power flows from the source to the other direction, or power flows to and from, information or communication or packets need to be told what to do, and that's what we call as routing. So you give them a route to where they're supposed to go, and for that communication to be complete, they need IPs. So IPs in this instance are like names or ID number. So an IP is like a name or an ID number. So you give it a specific IP where it goes, what information to relay, and how it communicates. That is either via IPv4 or IPv6. And you can also configure it in a way that this information can only be accessed by somebody, a specific person. That's the VLAN. So you can create a VLAN whereby only specific people, and in this instance I'm using people, can be able to access that information. So let's dive in. This is going to be a very, very long topic, and I hope we'll be together in this. So with me here is the console, or it's the home page, and there are several components. So from down here, we have the networking devices, the end devices. The end devices are like PCs, laptops, servers, printers, and all these other components. We have components. This is the MCU board, the SBC board, and rig. And we have connections. These are mostly wires, and mostly we'll be using the copper wire, because the Ethernet cable in this instance is a copper wire. In wireless communication, we are not using any wire. So in this instance, we'll be using this copper straight wire. And we have these are called miscellaneous. Okay, so these are the miscellaneous. We have there are several. Just take, and we have this is the multi-user. So today I'm going to create a network of two computers, that's PCA and PCB. And what we'll do, we'll have a switch. From the PCA we'll go to a switch, then to a router, then to a PCB. And for our first video, we won't configure them to communicate, because it's a process and it will take a lot of time. So I'll just dive into it. So first of all, I come to the in devices. So I left click on it. I click in the space, then I come to the router. We'll be using the 4221. I click it here. I mean it's a 4321, not 42. But before the router, I wanted us to have a switch. So a switch is a system, and what a switch does, okay, wait, before we'll have a switch, and after a switch, now then comes in the router. After now the router, then we'll have a PCB. So for this PCA to communicate to PCB via the switch and via the router, you need to route them. To route is to give direction for this information to flow towards and to flow backwards. So for this information to go through, our PCs will be using, we've connected our PCs via the cable. So we come here to the connections and we'll be using the copper straight wire. So I just click on the wire here, then I place here. We have options: the USB or USB 1, the RS232, and the fast Ethernet. For PCs, we'll be using fast Ethernet, and since it's the first one, it has the fast Ethernet 0, then to the switch. Now since we have already occupied fast Ethernet 0, and the communication is still between these two devices, one that already has the fast Ethernet, the least fast Ethernet we have here now is 1. So we select 1, back to the straight copper wire from the switch. Now you see that the fast Ethernet 1 is not available, or the only remaining one, the fast Ethernet 2 is the minimum. So I take the fast Ethernet 2 to the router. Now when we come to the router uses the gigabit Ethernet, and for this we have two options: the gigabit Ethernet 0 and 1. So since it's the entry, we'll use the gigabit Ethernet 0. These are the USB console auxiliary, and then the console won't use them, so we use the gigabit Ethernet 0. And this information is now coming from the router to the PCB, so we use the gigabit Ethernet 01. And now to the PC, you see we have an option of the fast Ethernet. Why is it that we have an option and it's fast Ethernet 0? Because you can consider the first Ethernet 1 was here, fast Ethernet 0 was here, that's the first one. The second one was somewhere here, and from here to here we use the fast Ethernet. But since from the router to the PCB we have not used the fast Ethernet, so we begin again with fast Ethernet. So we have the fast Ethernet 0. These devices are connected, but they cannot communicate because they don't have a route to communicate. So for us to route, we give each device an IP address. Now to check whether these devices can communicate, you open any of them. But since we have not allocated them the IP addresses, they won't be able to ping. Pinging helps us to know if communication is going through. And this will be our first video for the networking class. The next time we come back here, we'll be creating we'll give them the IPs, we'll ping, then we'll explain. And for our first networking video, this is what we have. So just understand that these are down here the components. We have the wire, the connection, the devices, the networking devices, components. We have the miscellaneous. We have for this we had the multi-user, and up here we have several options, of which if you scroll on one, they are normal options. Being that you've used the computer applications, they're just options. These they undo, redo. You can zoom in. There are several, and the app options are also options you've come across. So for this one, we are going to save this connection. And just to clarify, this is not a complete connection, because okay, the wires are already there. We've connected the wires, but there is no communication because we've not created a route. We've not created a path of how this information moves. The information moves in form of packets. So our next video will be continuing from here. Okay.